What is cancel culture? And is cancel culture reserved for just one ideological group, or does it just kind of exist everywhere? I'm going to dig into this. I'm going to use a lot of terms I dislike, and I'm hoping I can open up some thoughts on this matter because this is an area of decent frustration, I think, for a lot of people. Hey, everybody, this is Perch. Talking about cancel culture, and in particular, talking about the kinds of people that bring cancel culture to the table. Now, what is cancel culture? Well, there's a lot of videos that kind of can explain it, but basically it's, there's something I don't like that shows up on a thing, a book, a movie, a comic book, a TV show, whatever. Something happens. Some celebrity gives a statement. Somebody says something, and it makes people mad. And the response is to try and get the show taken off the air, or the book pulled, or an endorsement removed, or basically try and remove the person from the spotlight. Now, it has had mixed results always. Cancel culture, as a thing, is where somebody says something, rather than kind of ask for clarification or allow them to apologize and just accept the apology and move on, or just ignore it and move on with your life and not get so bugged about everything. People get really wound up, and then they make a lot of noise. And in making a lot of noise, it brings a lot more attention to whatever the topic is that people are upset about: the person, the celebrity, the TV show, the comic, whatever. And typically speaking, that drives up interest and prices, because whenever there is a cancel culture kind of fad going on, it is a double-edged sword of people come in and they agree, oh, this is bad, I'm also mad and outraged, I'm going to shout about it. Or people defend, you cancel culture people are stupid, now I'm going to buy more of it. And that just, it balloons into typically more business for the property rather than it just being left alone. In comic books, there's a good example of this in a book called Pervert, which was an Image comic, let's say C title. It was one that they were not advertising, they were not marketing, they were really doing nothing for it. And the creator was as I recall, a trans writer or artist. I do no longer remember what the trans creator did, if it was a writer or an artist or a producer or whatever, however they were attached to the book. Anyway, this trans creator decides to poke at the Richard Meyer, who had the Diversity in Channel, a comics channel, and make some comments about, as I recall, it was something like the military, screw the military, or this guy is a jerk. I don't. It was inflammatory comments. It was low class. No. I mean, it was not disguised as a highbrow, intelligent piece of commentary. It was a trolling kind of attack. And in return, the Diversity in Comics channel touched on the tweet, I think multiple times, or it came up multiple times at least. And the end result of all that was a handful of people said, I'm going to support the pervert even more now. It was questionable whether they actually would or have not, or if they just wanted to be part of this argument. And a handful of people saying, this book is awful, it needs to, how dare Image publish this? And they went after Eric Larson, and they said, you guys should pull the book. And so there was this phenomenon of, creator does something, says something very distasteful, people get mad about it, other people get mad about the thing that they're mad about, and conflict arises. The end result of this was the pervert did poorly in comics, which anybody could see coming. Again, forget about all this controversy, and the title itself was, it was MIA from Image's marketing and anything and everything else. It wasn't doing anything, which might cause some to speculate that the whole reason the creator made the comment that she made, that it was intentional to draw attention to a book that was not getting much promotion or attention on its own. It was a way to draw attention, and it did. So the book sold poorly, but I think most people within the retailers' groups believed that the title sold probably double what it would have sold normally, because otherwise it was a ghost. It was just it was a book with zero attention. It went nowhere, and it got some attention and sold. Rule of just finger in the air, double what it normally would have sold. Okay, so what does all this mean? It means that cancel culture as a thing tends to have equal destructive and positive effects. And interestingly enough, from my vantage point, it only has true destructive potential if the target of the cancel culture submits to that outrage. Meaning, if a celebrity, for example, admits, basically says something like, oh yeah, I shouldn't have said that. You're wrong. I will do better in the future. This is a teachable moment for me, etc., etc. That tends to be how that tends to be where the damaging part really comes in. If you give it attention, then the angry people are never satisfied. They just continue to kind of harp on it, harp on it, harp on it. Whereas if you completely ignore it, I mean completely, not troll back, not do anything, just completely and utterly ignore it, it feels like that cancel culture rapidly moves on to something that is, wants to fight back and have a brawl. And so these why this strategy is not employed by more big companies and things, because people will say, hey, this cereal box has a cartoon character that is a slightly darker shade of brown than the other characters, and that character is depicted as a janitor. This is systemic racism at work. The cereal company should apologize. If the cereal company says nothing and ignores it, the controversy seems to die very quickly. It gains no traction. And trending on Twitter, it does not matter. Like, something can be trending on Twitter right now. By 8 o'clock tonight, people will have forgotten what was trending. It'll be on to the next thing, especially these outrage topics. So why more big companies don't just not turn the other cheek, but completely shut out, ignore, radio silence? When Vox calls and says, does the company have a comment on this racist cereal box? Be like, I don't know what you're talking about. Hang up. Just say nothing. Feed it nothing, and it tends to go away. But if you feed it at all, then it seems to get very damaging. So now I think comes the big question, who is responsible for cancel culture? And typically when this is brought up on Twitter and social media, people say, oh, it's SJWs. Social justice warriors are the people who are always out and out and out. And I think, if social justice warrior is, if that term, which I dislike that term because it's meaningless. It's applied to behaviors and random people. It doesn't mean anything anymore. From my vantage point, I see it as meaningless. But if we're talking about the warrior part of the social justice warrior, by warrior we mean somebody who's wanting to go into battle, wanting to have a feud, wanting to brawl, then sure, people who are in that mentality are definitely into cancel culture. But to be honest, the people who pull these kinds of stunts are everybody. The common thread is that they're jerks. There are people who are on the left and on the right and on the center and on the anarchists and on every different spectrum that are lately harnessing social media and other things to want to go and yell at somebody and get people angry. The people who were clamoring you can have the receipts. You can go and look at the people who are shouting at Image to drop the pervert as a title. Those people were exhibiting cancel culture, in their own words, SJW behavior, if you want to call it that. Again, that's why I think it's such a dumb term, because these were people who were unwilling to kind of just let the market decide. Now, not to veer too much into that topic, I mean, what do you do when you have a creator who's making crazy tweets and saying things that are disgusting and distasteful? Should you fire them? I mean, in my opinion, yeah, probably. I mean, depending on what is said, yeah, if you say completely offensive, really radical things that are designed to inflame, you should probably lose your job. I do agree with that. Whether you're saying it for the left, the right, racist, not racist, whatever it is, if you're saying crazy a-hole things, then you should probably lose your job. And if you're doing freelance work or if you're doing something, what I don't agree with is that if you are, trundling along at a company and you're producing comics or whatever you happen to produce, or there's a comic channel, so we're time to talk comics. If you're producing a comic, and then on issue 8 of your 20 issue run, you say something insane and you cause the company a lot of difficulty and damage and everything else, I think that, yeah, you should lose your job, and company has to scramble to figure out a different plan because now things have changed. I think that's normal and correct and everything else. I also think, though, that if you're one of those angry people who was angry about the tweet or whatever the person says, I think you have to accept that the company that was employing this person has to come up with that contingency plan, has to, make adjustments. And this is the part that makes me insane about comics, is that they will get angry. Like, again, somebody is, issue 8 is in the stands, right? It's in the comic shop. You can buy it. Creator says something insane. Company fires said creator. Issue 9 comes out and it's still by the same creator. And then people are saying, how dare you? Why didn't you pull this from the shelves? Stop publishing it. What's going on? That comic was already done. It was in the bag. It was moving to the printers and everything else. I do not think it is reasonable to expect a publisher to retroactively start canceling and removing things back. I think that if you have a contract, a company should honor that contract to their end. And I think if you're an employee, you should honor your side of the world by, not saying and doing crazy things. But I don't think the entire universe should move mountains immediately at any given second based upon the whims of social media. I think it's a completely reasonable expectation for a company to say, here's an employee. They said some crazy things. We severely disagree with these crazy things. We decided that in this interest, we're going to reprimand and give them a second chance. And that is our decision. And then, if they do this again, they're fired. And if the person does it again, they are fired. Fine. I think that as a reasonable company decision to make. If people disagree with that, they can boycott the company. They can do all kinds of things. But I think there is an expectation within cancel culture that not only is there outrage, not only must it be immediately addressed, but publishers and companies and other things should take severe financial pains to actually go and pulp every book and retroactively, like, call up the comic stores and pay the shops to take things off the stands. I mean, with the Pervert comic, again, people were asking for Image to round up the books that were already published and pulp them and not print them as a result of the tweet. The book was already printed. I think that is crazy. I'm sorry. I think that is unreasonable. I think it is definitely reasonable for the company to say, yeah, we're not giving this person any more work. That time is over. We will not do future projects with this creator, which is, I believe, what happened. But to actually go and now incur additional cost because somebody said something crazy, I mean, the firing is enough. That's in my opinion. Everybody has their own standard, their own way of looking at this, and that's fine, totally fine. People can, have their own standards for how these things should work. Totally okay. I just think that, we have to be reasonable with our expectations of what we expect people to do. I think that's fair. So I mean, I don't know. How do you fit in on all this? I think that in general, outrage culture and cancel culture needs to withdraw. We need to take a step back from it and start to get to more normalcy. And what that's going to mean is that everyone is going to have to accept a little bit more of what they don't like. Because if every time somebody is upset by something, we get to yell and scream and cause things to be canceled, again, whether it's on the left, the right, anybody, then we're forever trapped in that, well, he did it, so I get to do it too, kind of behavior. And we never get anywhere. And that's where it feels like current cancel culture sits. It feels like it's this constant stalemate of, I'm going to be angry, so you get to be angry, and you got one of mine, so I get one of yours. And that goes nowhere. Eventually, we're going to have to say, hey, I don't like this. It's bad. I'm not going to buy it. I'm going to be angry about it. Whatever it is, but I'm not going to create this fuss and try and get I'm not going to lead a campaign to get this thing erased from human memory. That's That's just A, not reasonable, and B, just a waste of time when you can just not buy. Now, everybody listening to this probably has their own thing in their mind that A, they were outraged by, or B, they were outraged at somebody else being outraged by it. I'm sure there are, and there are a lot of bad things, and there's a lot of well, what ifs, and there's a lot of this person said something that was like Hitler, and there's a million different routes we can take with this topic. I just think there has to be a step back because it's today it's a bit out of control, in my opinion. What's yours? Leave me a comment below. Let me know what you think and what you decide. Like, subscribe, follow me on Twitter at Comic Perch, and thanks for listening.